Alright guys, this is absolutely no joke. There was a study done via the US Pentagon, via Xegis Solutions, or Xegis Solutions. Now, let me get to the meat and potatoes here so you can just find out exactly why this is, and I'll tell you a little Cherokee story that I learned a while back, which actually makes some damn good sense in Vietnam. And then they didn't learn in Vietnam from a previous study being done in like the 1800s. So let me get to this point for you real quick about this study. Xegis Solutions was contracted to do a combat effectiveness study in Afghanistan. This is no joke, folks. Okay? 100 soldiers took part in this in Afghanistan. They took 100 soldiers. 25 were Special Forces qualified, had beards. 25 were Special Forces without beards. 25 were regular Army, allowed to grow beards for the study. 25 were regular Army without beards. Jonathan Burns was one of the researchers for Xegis Solutions. Okay, alright, here we go. All 100 of these subjects were in direct combat in Afghanistan during the study. So they were in direct harm's way, folks. Xegis Solutions found several teams of researchers embedded with the troops to make observations on the combat effectiveness. The results were overwhelming. Out of the 50 soldiers with beards, 0 were wounded or killed, and they had a significant higher accuracy and rate of fire than the soldiers without beards. Soldiers lacking beards had a higher rate of weapons malfunctions. Basically, shit went wrong most of the time. It basically goes back to the old ways, folks. You're more connected to your environment because of the fur on your face and your head, etc. And I'll go into that in a minute because it makes damn good sense, and I'll tell you why in a minute or two. Alright, so CENTCOM basically wanted to establish this rule forcing males to grow beards. Not a damn bad solution. Keep fur on your face if you plan on getting into a firefight, because it's going to goddamn save your ass. That's all I'm going to say. This is done by Commander General James Mattis. Issued a statement to all troops in combat zones. The time has come for the armed forces to accept the fact, and the facts are that beards save lives. All this time, it was speculated the Green Berets were better because their superior and intensive training were, in fact, most of it had been done with beards. There's no doubt that many Special Forces community will be angered, but this is the idea. It's science. And the information will enforce the rule requiring all males to wear at least 1 inch of facial hair at all times. I'm not making this shit up, folks. Okay, so we established the premise that this is absolutely true. Let me go back to why. It's been long accepted in the native communities all around the world that long hair allows you to vibe differently with your environment, to impact your environment, to pick up your environment. And I'm not just talking about subtleties. I'm talking about direct contact with your environment, whether you knowingly or unknowingly know it. This is everything from, seeing a bird flying off in the distance, knowing whether or not something is there or not, to various other things. And from the United States history alone, there's been 2 major trials, this one now being a third. The first one, I believe, was in it had to be before 1802. I don't know. It was sometime during the time when the Native Americans were being recruited into the U.S. Army. It was like 1750s-ish, something like that. And the time they started shaving their heads. for recruiting. So you're going to have to look up to when that actually started. And this happened in both the 1780s, I imagine, or 17. I don't know. 17. We'll just say 1760s, just for the hell of it. And then again during Vietnam, and now we understand that this is an absolute thing. Now they're saying beards before it was hair. The idea is the fur on your face and head will save your ass, and here's why. Well, I've already given you the why factor. Basically, the Indians were hired for their tracking, their hunting, their communical skills with nature and its environment. I'll just sum up the two from the Wild West days and the Indian Wars and the Vietnam era. The Indian braves were recruited into the army, and the first thing they did was shave their heads. Well, they wanted these young guys who knew how to hunt, how to track, and how to do all this thing. But the thing is they were communal with nature in their environment. That hair allowed them to vibe with nature, to save their ass, because they were in tune with that culture, with that reality. The ends picked up, all the subtleties, and it fed it back to the brain. I know you're going to laugh at this, but there's so many studies, it's ridiculous. And so, from the Vietnam one, when the soldiers got into battle, and no doubt we can talk about World War II and the Wind Talkers as well, when the soldiers got into battle, or the Braves got into combat situations, and they started not being able to act effectively, they found out it was because they cut their hair. Now, there's a story that goes along this, and I forget the exact origin of it, but basically the idea is around that 1760s era, when all the Braves were basically being hired by the U.S. military and stuff, or taken hostage and forced into it, however it ended up, there was a supposed specific village and specific tribe, I want to say Sioux, Cheyenne, Cherokee, or one of the major Indian nations. And basically, folks, there's a couple of different things that happened here, but I'm going to sum it up for you. The one major thing that happened was that these Braves were taken off their area from their families and everything else, and they had them shave their heads. Well, there was some kind of mythos in the area that if all the young men of combat age were to have their heads shaved and everything else, they'd have bad weather, bad plight, and everything else toward the village where their home is. Basically, the environment would flip on those people for allowing this kind of disrespect of nature. And nobody thought this was actually true. And I've been trying to find this story forever, and I can't find it, and I think it's because I don't know who it originally came from, and what group of Native Americans. And basically, the idea was they were all recruited, they were all had their heads shaved, all the bad things happened, and when those guys were away, there was all kinds of ravaged storms and various bad things, how the environment was basically punishing the villagers, or the village, who allowed all these men, all these Braves, to have their heads shaved and basically cut those people off from their environment and their tune with nature all at once. And so now we're basically relearning this, folks, and this makes sense. Back then it was the long hair on the head, and now we're saying beards. It's the same thing. I want to know exactly where the difference is between the long hair and the beards, since Native Americans didn't really have beards that I'm aware of, at least not traditionally. So I wonder where that mythos meets on the long hair, but I'm guessing 1 inch. If 1 inch is the standard in the beards, folks, in combat, holy crap. I'll tell you what, I'll grow mine out. I noticed an absolute significant change when I had my head and my beard taken down. I mean, I've always been in tune with nature, but when I had it all taken down, I could literally feel like I was being, taken out of the loop from my environment. And actually, what was really weird, and this could have just been allergies at this point, but I actually had a headache that I did not have before that. And a lot of people would say, well, your beard and everything kept you from, mild allergies and various things because all that hair basically caught that and it didn't go into your nose and into your mouth. And it was also punishment from your environment for doing this. And I guarantee you these soldiers would find out the exact same thing now as if they would have in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, and as they did in the 60s, 1770s, and so on. And this is always going to be true, folks. This is a real thing that keeps you alive, makes you deadlier, makes you faster, makes your decisions better, makes you more in tune with your environment. You have this fur for a reason. Why do you think they don't want you to have it during basic? Because it allows groupthink a lot easier because you don't have that natural instinct to to say, no, I don't believe in that, or, to make those decisions for you. And now they're freaking learning this. This is amazing. And I'm very glad to bring this to you. Thank you.